The silent financial coup already happened. You just didn't notice while the headlines screamed inflation and elections. The real story was unfolding underneath. Not a crash, not a protest, but a quiet, calculated restructuring of the global financial system. No one voted on it. No one announced it. But it changed everything, and most people still haven't realized it. What happened wasn't loud, but it was powerful. Control shifted. Trust eroded. And the old system began to surrender its grip on the global economy. Let's start with what we can measure. The U.S. national debt is now over $36.2 trillion. That number is not just unsustainable, it's a symptom, a sign that the system built on perpetual debt is cracking. Meanwhile, gold has surged to $3,289.39 per ounce. Silver trades at $32.98. Bitcoin remains over $104,000. And XRP is holding strong at $2.19. These assets are telling a story, one the mainstream financial media won't touch. That story is this: the traditional monetary system is no longer trusted, and the institutions that managed it, they're quietly losing control. Central banks and governments once operated behind a veil, printing money, inflating away debt, and bailing out bad behavior without transparency. But the rise of decentralized ledgers, public blockchains, and tokenized assets has exposed their game. This is the silent coup, peaceful overthrow of the invisible empire that dictated the value of your money and the rules of your economy. Now, the playing field is shifting. Power is no longer concentrated in ivory towers and gated boardrooms. It's flowing outward to transparent protocols, open source tools, and value networks that don't care about nationality, credit score, or status. And that's what makes this moment so historic. The financial revolution isn't coming. It already came. But it didn't look like people expected. There were no protests in the streets, no emergency announcements, just a quiet migration of value from the legacy system to something cleaner, faster, and fairer. Assets like XRP and Stellar are leading that charge, not because they're trendy, but because they offer real solutions to problems the old system never intended to fix. Global remittances, cross-border settlements, and asset tokenization are no longer theoretical. They're functional, live, and growing. And they're not controlled by any one government or institution. Hedera and Algorand are adding to this foundation with security, scalability, and governance features that legacy systems can't match. The kind of infrastructure the old system fears, because it exposes inefficiency and eliminates the need for centralized control. That's why the coup went silent. The institutions losing power aren't going to announce their own irrelevance. Look at their actions. Governments are scrambling to draft digital asset legislation. Central banks are studying blockchain. Financial giants are investing in the same technology they once mocked. These are not signs of confidence. They're signs of reaction, of a system responding to disruption it can't control. And it's not just institutions adapting. It's the people. More investors than ever are holding non-sovereign assets. More builders are working on decentralized applications. More capital is flowing into transparent, programmable financial systems. This isn't a fad. It's a realignment. Public is voting with their wallets, and they're voting for sovereignty. Not because of ideology, but because of logic. In the legacy system, inflation steals your savings. Hidden fees erode your wealth. Bailouts punish responsibility, and closed systems reward the few at the expense of the many. In the new system, transparency is default, supply is capped, protocols are open, and trust isn't required because verification is built in. This is not about rejecting every element of the past. It's about recognizing that the model built in the 20th century no longer fits the 21st. The world is global, connected, and digital. And the financial architecture is finally catching up. That shift doesn't require a vote. It just requires participation. You don't have to wait for a collapse to prepare. You just need to observe what's already happening and act before the crowd wakes up. Because by the time this story makes the front page, the opportunity will be gone. That's how quiet this coup has been. It didn't ask for attention. It just executed one wallet, one protocol, one transaction at a time. The old system still exists, but its influence is fading. Its monopoly is broken. We'll walk with you through the shift, and show you how to protect, grow, and multiply your wealth in the decentralized age. In past decades, monetary authority was considered untouchable. Central banks were trusted without question. Their policies were seen as complex but benevolent, engineered to maintain stability. But the truth is, much of the global financial system was built on opacity. Few people understood how money was created, where it flowed, or why their purchasing power kept shrinking year after year. This wasn't an accident. The legacy system depended on that opacity. It depended on people accepting inflation as normal, bailouts as necessary, and financial hardship as a personal failing. But the rise of blockchain exposed a critical flaw in that narrative. When transparency enters the equation, trust is no longer required. And once people stop trusting, they start verifying. The silent coup is not just a technological upgrade, it's a shift in mindset. We are witnessing the rebirth of financial consciousness, a moment where individuals begin to understand their own economic power. They no longer accept that only licensed banks can store money, or that central banks should be allowed to devalue savings with a keystroke. The conversation has changed from, can I trust this institution, to why should I need one at all? Technologies like Hedera and Algorand are helping bring this to life in areas far beyond finance. They're enabling public records, supply chain transparency, identity verification, all with open ledgers and immutable systems. These tools aren't just replacing banks. They're replacing bureaucracy. They're replacing slow, inefficient, gate-kept systems with ones that are instant, universal, and trustworthy by design. But make no mistake, the institutions losing control are not giving up easily. They're rebranding. They're adopting the language of innovation while attempting to maintain control. They want to create digital versions of their old power structures, but they're too late. The real momentum has already shifted. It's in the hands of coders, entrepreneurs, and independent thinkers who are building parallel systems. It's in the decentralized exchanges, the community-governed protocols, the tokenized economies that settle value in seconds without needing to ask permission from a legacy gatekeeper. And perhaps most importantly, this transformation is global. It is not bound to Wall Street or Washington. It's happening in El Salvador, where Bitcoin became legal tender. In South Korea, where token adoption is booming. In Kenya, where mobile wallets are the norm. In regions long excluded from financial privilege, people are building their own futures directly. This is the great equalizer. Not because it makes everyone instantly wealthy, but because it gives everyone access to the same rules. No one can inflate your savings without your consent. No one can freeze your funds without justification. No one can tell you what your money is worth because the code already did. So if the coup felt invisible, it's because you weren't supposed to notice. The system was never going to announce its own irrelevance. But it's happening. The signs are everywhere. The headlines just haven't caught up. History will look back on this moment as the quiet turning point. A peaceful transfer of economic power, not to another empire, but to the collective. To the people who chose transparency over, and if you're ready to claim your power in this new economy, subscribe to Wealth Signal. We'll walk with you through the shift and show you how to protect, grow, and multiply your wealth in the decentralized age.